Hey, welcome back to Lick of the Week vids. I've been looking back from a little over a month ago to the Lick of the Week poll, where I was asking folks who watch the videos to give me some input as to things they would like to see me cover. And I saw this theme maybe 5 or 6 times in the thread, and the replies were concerning understanding what a banjo does through an entire song in a bluegrass setting. So what I'm going to do is we're going to break the banjo's function down through the entire song. I'm going to pick a melody, and we're going to look at the introduction, the breaks, various types of backup, how to back up behind a vocalist. Basically, we're going to just format or blueprint what a banjo would do through an entire tune and look at the various things that you're going to be doing as the banjo player in a band situation. So we'll just call this formatting banjo, or song formats for banjo or something. But let's start with the introduction, and I've picked a tune. I saw somebody had mentioned Worried Man Blues, and that's actually a pretty good song to use for the experiment. And let's look at the entire tune as the banjo player would. We're going to look at what our job would be in the band situation. And of course, this version of this song may vary from different parts of the country, but the melody itself, from what I've heard, pretty much stays intact. And most bluegrass folks tend to have the same format, minus a verse or two here or there, or maybe they arrange the breaks differently, but the song stays pretty consistent. So it's actually a good vehicle tune for our look at this formatting the banjo. So I'm going to start with the introduction. Typically, for this song, the introduction is going to be the chorus of the song. So I have the words here, thanks to Woody Guthrie for this great tune. And I'm going to do the introduction, or the kickoff of the song, the way you would typically hear it in most parts of the country, which is to play the chorus. And the chorus and the verses have the same melody, so you could consider this a chorus or a verse introduction. So I'm going to give some lead-in notes. Start the kickoff. Now let's break that down, because that sounds like an introduction, which it is. It has lead-in notes, and then we're into the body of the kickoff, which you can consider it actually a solo for the banjo, functioning as the kickoff. But you'll notice that it lasted a little longer than the actual section of the melody that I was mimicking. So I was using the melody of the tune as it applies to the chorus. Of course, the chorus and the verse on this song has the same melody, but I'm thinking in my head of the chorus. It takes a worried man to sing a worried song. It takes a worried man to sing a worried song. It takes a worried man to sing a worried song. A worried child won't be worried. So you notice as my vocal trailed off, I mean, in my mind, I finished that section, and that's my introduction, but there seems to be a run-on, or where the banjo player is playing more than he's actually required to play. And those are phrases that are built into most of these songs, I guess for the vocalist maybe to gather himself up, get ready to play, get ready to sing, or maybe for the instrument to show off a little bit. I don't know, I've never really quite figured it out, but there's a definite function there that's built in. It's not just for the banjo. If the mandolin player had kicked off the song, there would be built-in run-on areas or phrases, I guess you could call them fill areas, or phrases where you're required to play a little more than actual melody there for your introduction. Now this would apply for a tune like this, where you play an entire section of the song for the introduction. Now of course, if you're playing like a turnaround, which is just a tag part of the melody, or a little section of the melody turned into a nice little introduction, it won't last as long, but there's still typically built-in areas before the vocalist comes in to sing a line of the song. So I'm picking this song because it's a vocal tune. Instrumentals operate a little differently sometimes than vocal songs, but the typical format for the banjo, since we're looking at the banjo, would be to play your introduction and then fill. Now, how long do you fill? Well, there's typical lengths of time to fill after a kickoff. I'm going to bring my camera back up. I'm looking at the lyrics instead of the camera. So let's look at what I did there at the end of the introduction. I'm worried long, I'm worried now, but I won't be worried long. What I did was actually played a couple of standard Scruggs licks, which you'll hear about any good Scruggs player do after my introduction. So that would have been 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 6. It could be a 6-beat whole. It could be an entire 2-measure whole. It could be maybe just a 1-measure whole. But they'll be typically across the country, if most players follow this format, is to play a certain number of beats after their introduction. Now, what licks would you want to put in that section? It's up to you. You could just roll through there. I'm worried now, I won't be worried long. But it gets kind of empty, and it seems like you're dragging a little longer than you should. Maybe people are waiting around thinking, why is the guy not singing here? So what you want to try to do is fill that area with something. And if it's a Scruggs type break, you could use melodic licks. You could, single string licks. You could put in whatever you want. But I'm going to stick to just basically a Scruggs version. And a good idea would be for you to look at the format for your introduction and figure out how you're going to fill those areas. And I would advise you, especially if you're a Scruggs type player, is to find some standard Scruggs licks that you know you're good at and try plugging those in. So each time you play your introduction, at the very end of your introduction, you're choosing different licks each time just for practice purposes. So we could do the intro again. That would be a different fill area, and it's the same amount of time as I played before. And this is just filling that hole until the vocalist decides he wants to start, to sing. And most people would leave the same hole. But now if you're in a jam session and the vocalist decides he wants to let you play more fills, you may just have to keep playing fill after fill, because they may just like you doing those fills, and they may want you to play more. But if you're playing in a band situation, typically if you had a band that you're playing in, the band would practice it a certain way and say, okay, Mr. Banjo player, we want you to play this many fills before Bill over there comes in with his vocal. So you'd have a predetermined hole that you would have to fill. And you may try different things, and the band may say, oh, we actually like those fills really well. How about doing those every time? Or they may just say, play whatever you like. But they will arrange the songs that there's a certain amount of time after your introduction before the vocals comes in, and they want you to fill that. So try these different fill-in licks, play them after the introduction to Worried Man Blues just for practice, and see what you can come up with. Thanks, and we'll see you next video.